News, medium-term action plan placed under microscope at government's validation retreat. And new Windward jetty promises enhanced connectivity between Carriacou and Petit Martinique. We'll have details to these stories and more, plus a look at news in the region when we return.
Well, at this time of the year, we do expect rainfall events because we will be affected by systems such as tropical wave passing through. We will have the presence of the ITCZ in our area, and we might even have tropical cyclones, whether it's depression or storm. Okay? So what we would expect is we will have big rain events. Okay? No matter how dry or wet the season is, we are going to have big rain events. So therefore it is important for every household to have some bit of water stored, because these big rain events normally put pressure on the water system. For example, we have landslides that we take away pipes. We may have heavy rainfall that would block the dams and so forth, and so your regular supply would be interrupted. So it is so important for every household to have the recommended 3 days storage of potable water in the household for such eventualities.
Welcome back with the details of the GIS news for Wednesday, July 15th. I am Rikisha St. Louis. Senior planners, managers, and policymakers gathered on Tuesday to assess the country's medium-term action plan, or MTAP, during a validation retreat held under the theme Validating Priorities for Resilience and Development. The group was encouraged to identify risk and mitigation strategies aligned with Grenada's National Sustainable Development Plan 2020 to 2035 and Vision 75. MTAP is the operational strategy document designed to facilitate the implementation of the Sustainable Development Plan. It outlines Grenada's sustainable development priorities that are aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals and sets out government strategic programs and actions for implementation. The retreat focused on validating priorities, strengthening accountability, improving collaboration, confirming budget readiness, and implementation sequencing, all geared toward delivering economic transformation. Prime Minister Honorable Deacon Mitchell, during the retreat's opening ceremony, underscored the significance of the medium-term action plan in securing short- and long-term development.
It is important for us to make sure that while the cabinet may deal with policy, you are the ones managing the people, you are the ones managing the resources. You are the ones coordinating implementation amongst yourselves. If you don't identify the bottlenecks, if you don't advise when something is not working, if we don't ensure continuity beyond the life of an individual project or administration, we cannot be successful. So this MTAP is not for the Cabinet Office. It is not for Dr. Grenade. It's not for the Policy and Monitoring and Evaluation Unit. It belongs to us. What are our priorities? Do we understand them? Do we agree with them? What are our targets? Do we understand them? Do we agree with them? Do we know who is responsible? Do we know who needs support? And are we prepared to deliver? That is the ownership that has to come out of the exercise.
He encouraged every ministry and department to conduct thorough research into what is a priority, what is feasible, and what aligns with the government's transformative agenda. According to Prime Minister Mitchell, the success of MTAP requires a whole-of-government approach.
But we must be prepared to work at it. We must ensure that we exercise the discipline that is required to put the plans into action. We must ensure that we collaborate with each other, that we do in fact take a whole-of-government approach, and that ultimately we hold ourselves accountable. So please, I know oftentimes it is challenging to come in a forum like this and to actively engage. But I will give examples of where planning, patience, and discipline leads to success. The last time I was in this room, I was beating up on the Ministry of Infrastructure. I'm not beating up on them today. I'm praising them because they have planned a lot better. They have gotten the human capacity they needed. They've thought outside of the box, and they've focused on how do they actually improve the lives of the people. And so some of the improvements you're seeing and you will see over the next 12 months in the infrastructure in Grenada is because of that. And so there are real examples that we can find where if we step back a little, if we take our planning seriously, if we ask the hard and uncomfortable questions, if we identify our gaps, if we then fill the gaps, and everybody knows the mission, we can in fact accomplish the mission.
Cabinet Secretary Ms. Cavell-Lett explained that the mission is to move away from a plan into implementation. Once priorities are assessed, gaps are identified, and the plan can be incorporated into the government's budget, government can translate its vision for the next 3 years into actual projects and programs.
We are not starting over. The work that has been done over the past several months has given us a strong foundation. Nor are we here to create a longer list of activities. Every ministry has many important responsibilities, but the MTAP cannot contain everything that government does. Our task today is more focused. We must ask whether the priorities before us are the right ones for the next 3 years. We must confirm what we are prepared to deliver. We must identify what needs to change, and we must be clear about what is required to move from the plan to the implementation. The MTAP must be a working instrument. The MTAP occupies a very important place in our national planning system. The National Sustainable Development Plan 2020 to 2035 tells us where Grenada wants to go over the long term. Vision 75 gives added momentum to that national transformation. The MTAP must translate that vision into a manageable set of actions that the government can pursue over the next 3 years.
Government has already formulated a draft MTAP for 2027 to 2029. Persons involved in Grenada's trade and service industries engaged in a 4-day in-country training and sensitization program as part of the OECS Specialized Training Services training. The sessions held at the National Stadium were spearheaded by the Division of Trade and Export Development and funded under the 11th EDF RIGHT program. Representative of the OECS Commission, Dolores Francis, says the goal is to have an informed, knowledgeable public and private sector.
It is an investment in both our national stakeholders and strengthening institutional knowledge capacity. It is an opportunity to deepen your understanding of trade and services, to strengthen our collaboration, and that is collaboration with the public sector and all of our private sector stakeholders, to identify potential and untapped export opportunities, and to ensure that Grenada is well positioned to benefit from an increasingly integrated regional and global marketplace.
Participants will discuss trading within OECS and CARICOM networks, international trade negotiations, and strategies to strengthen Grenada's service sectors. Director of Trade within the ministry, David Hopkin, says the areas covered are timely.
We'll have the opportunity to deepen our understanding of trade in services, regional integration processes, regulatory reform, and international trade obligations. Equally important, the program will expose us to emerging concepts, new opportunities that can support economic diversification, strengthen national competitiveness, and position Grenadian service providers to take advantage of regional and global markets.
Minister for Foreign Affairs, Trade and Export Development, Honorable Joseph Andal, praised the government's partnership with the OECS Commission and other regional agencies. He reinforced the importance of the training, stating that Grenada's service industry is the principal driver of economic growth and transformation.
We must ensure that Grenada is not only aware of opportunities arising from regional integration and international agreements, but that we are fully prepared to take advantage of them. This is why programs such as this are so important. They help build the technical expertise necessary to develop sound policies, negotiate effectively, address market access challenges, and create an enabling environment for service providers to thrive. They also encourage meaningful dialogue between policymakers and the private sector, ensuring that our trade and economic policies respond to the realities faced by businesses and service suppliers.
The certified training saw participation from government ministries and agencies, business support organizations, civil society, and the private sector. 100 students from 10 secondary schools are participating in a science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, or STEAM camp, organized by the Global STEAM Center for Education. The camp, which is in its 5th year, was founded by Grenadian-born Chantel Courtney Registry and her husband, Arthur Registry, who are both educators in New York City in the United States of America. This year, the aim of the camp is to use science, technology, engineering, arts, and math to consider the possibility of building a bridge to connect mainland Grenada with Carriacou and Petite Martinique. Co-founder Courtney Registry says the students are being encouraged to dream big and make mistakes.
We want to encourage the students to make mistakes. For us, making mistakes is learning. You cannot learn without making a mistake. So what we do when they do make the mistake, you're not criticized. It's constructive criticism where we encourage them. Well, let's try again. Maybe this happened because of that. Build it again. So with the bridge building, they're going to build a bridge. It may be able to carry the weight. If it doesn't, go back to the drawing board, start over. So that's what we're trying to help the students understand, that to grow, you have to make mistakes. That's with life in itself.
The Ministry of Education is pleased to be partnering with the Global STEAM Center for Education as volunteers work with the students during the camp. District Education Officer Colleen Aban Marshall addressed the students during the opening ceremony.
Students, this camp is designed for you. It is your chance to roll up your sleeves, to build, to program, to experiment, and to discover. The bridge building challenge is about structures, yes, but it's also about learning how to think critically, solve problems creatively, and work together as a team.
The STEAM campers will also learn about writing a business plan to attract funding for their inventions and participate in community service by visiting children at 2 orphanages. The organizers of the Global STEAM Center for Education hope to expand by applying for grants and with generous donations by supporters through their website www.theglobalsteamcentereducation.org. The STEAM camp began on Monday, July 13th at the Westerhall Secondary School and will end on July 21st. We'll take a short break. Stay with us.
The Caribbean is facing increasingly severe climate extremes, and our most crucial resource, water, is under threat. Changes in precipitation patterns, prolonged droughts, and intense storms are impacting both the availability and quality of our water supply.
Water resources essentially is water for potable use, agricultural use, industrial use, and so on. And it can either be on the surface or it could be ground.
Although forecasts for heavy rainfall in 2024 might seem promising, these intense downpours often cause runoff instead of replenishing groundwater sources, which many islands depend on for drinking water.
On the groundwater side, if it is that we get a drier than usual wet season, we need to be concerned moving into next year Because if that's followed by a dry season, then we have a problem in 2025 for sure.
To address these changes, it is essential for communities to not only prepare for storms, but also to manage water resources wisely.
As a community, we start investing in the development of these rainwater harvesting systems. That's one approach. What you can do as an individual is to see how within your own household you can reduce your water footprint in terms of how you use water.
As we move through 2024, focusing on water sustainability and resilience is crucial. Together, through improved management and conservation efforts, we can advance the sustainable use of water resources and build a water-resilient Caribbean.
Welcome back. Landscape of the maritime travel between Carriacou and Petite Martinique is undergoing a historic transformation. Following its destruction during Hurricane Beryl, the Ministry of Infrastructure, in collaboration with the Ministry of Carriacou and Petite Martinique Affairs and local government, has launched a climate-resilient redevelopment project to build back a stronger jetty in Carriacou. For years, the old Windward jetty served as a vital transit point. Constructed from wooden planks, it required constant, costly annual maintenance and stood highly vulnerable to severe weather. When Hurricane Beryl struck the island, the wooden structure was destroyed, severing a primary historical link and forcing travelers to take longer, more inconvenient detours through other ports. The modern structure features several major structural and functional design upgrades, including modern concrete design that allows direct drive-on and drive-off vehicle access, extending just over 150 feet in length and 16 feet wide. The jetty ends in an L-shaped configuration to accommodate larger capacities and safely manage small boat landings. The work has been done by the contracting firm Aramco Grenada. Finally, in the local segment, teachers at the T.A. Marichaud Community College and the New Life organization, NULO, were engaged in a 4-day training as part of OECS SKIP, Transversal Skills Integration Training to increase employability. This was the second training of its kind on the island. Annette Moore has the details in this report.
Facilitators believe that the recently held second cohort of the OECS Skills and Innovation Project Transversal Skills Integration Training for Teachers from the T.A. Marichaud Community College and the New Life organization is key to improving soft skills.
Transversal skills really speaks to transferring your foundation and employability skills, transferring them to your place of work.
The training aims to produce graduates who are not only technically proficient, but also adaptable, innovative, and ready to meet the demands of the labor market. Therefore, it directly addressed the need to equip teachers with the pedagogical tools or the tools related to the practice, theory, and methods of teaching, as well as strategies to effectively integrate transversal or soft skills into their lesson planning. Facilitator Frances Edwards explained more about the program.
We will be looking at competency-based education and training, which is actually the way we encourage people to do. We'll be talking about things like adult learning theories, learning styles. We're looking at lesson planning, how to plan our lessons to include the transversal skills. And some of these skills that we're going to be talking about would be things like foundation skills, basic numeracy, literacy, digital skills, talking about communication, teamwork, creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, time management, among others. Once these skills are properly taught, the students would have better attitudes and therefore be able to fit into the workplace and become better employees, be more effective at their jobs, because their attitudes would be those that are desired by the industry.
Gender Program Development Officer in the Ministry of Social Development, Anderson Richardson, discussed how to engage all students to ensure no child is left behind and all are able to achieve success and contribute meaningfully to society.
So what we look at is gender responsiveness in the TVET education, looking at the technical and vocational skills training, how do we incorporate gender within that? How do we provide for how boys learn versus how girls learn? How do we deal with the different sociological stereotypes or the different social stereotypes that we have going out there in society that limits boys, limits girls, limits potential, right? And how do we as professionals, even as teachers, how do we adapt new learning strategy for persons with disabilities to allow for inclusion, right? Making sure that no one is left behind and those kind of things. And so we're just having that kind of discussion today, that kind of engagement, coming up with strategies that could work, of course, taking into consideration what we have here in terms of human resources, other physical resources, looking at how do we incorporate that now into our teaching syllabus, into our teaching strategy and so on, moving forward to ensure that everybody is part and parcel of what we're doing.
Quality Assurance Coordinator at the National Training Agency, Nadine Lett, shared on what her organization's involvement entails.
The NTA is pleased to participate in the opening of the second cohort of training for the OECS Skills and Innovation Project. The instructors who are going to be participating in this training, they would receive competency units of the Level 5 National Vocational Qualification for TVET instruction delivery.
Once the instructors continue to make a deliberate effort to include the transversal skills in their teaching, getting the students to, when they're assigned to groups, give them different roles so they can have their leadership roles. They would learn about professional ethics. They would learn to perform different tasks. So when they get into the workplace, they'll be better able to perform. Now, this would take time, and therefore it has to be a deliberate effort to actually include that in your planning, and hence it becomes part of them. So the students would be exposed. You'll have case studies where they will actually have to do certain things, scenarios that they would encounter in the workplace, so that they can display those skills. Because as we know, one of the problems the employers have is the attitude of the students or the young people who come to the places of employment.
The training was held at the Karani James Athletic Stadium in St. George from June 29th to July 2nd. For GIS News, I'm Annette Moore.
Thank you, Annette. This is the GIS News. We'll take a look at what's happening in the region when we come back.
The journey of 1,000 miles begins with but a step. So the journey of a year begins with but a sec. 1 second is the difference between old and new. The difference between what you have done and what you have to do. 1 second is the difference between who you were and who you are going to be. The difference between a year of expectations and a year of memories. Awaiting you is a year of opportunities and new moves. Just one final second to reflect. And then we must embrace indeed. I reckon 1 second is all we need.
Welcome back. Nearly 3 weeks after the devastating earthquakes struck Venezuela on June 24th, the health response is entering a critical early recovery phase focused on restoring essential health services, strengthening referral networks, and preventing secondary public health emergencies. That's according to the Pan American Health Organization's latest situation report, which provides an overview of the evolving response and the organization's accompanying public health situation analysis of Venezuela. According to the situation report, the earthquakes have claimed 4,333 lives, left 16,740 injured, displaced 17,907 persons, and damaged 38 health facilities. While emergency medical care and rapid assessments helped save lives in the immediate aftermath, the priority is now shifting to restoring health services, rehabilitating damaged facilities, and ensuring people continue to receive essential care as recovery begins. 7 specialists from PAHO and WHO's regional and global response teams have joined the organization's office in Caracas, providing expertise in emergency coordination, epidemiological surveillance, logistics, information management, emergency medical team coordination, health facility assessments, and risk communication. Across the Eastern Caribbean, the persistent arrival of Sargassum seaweed have long presented a critical challenge to coastal communities, marine ecosystems, and local economies. However, insights gained from a comprehensive study tour through Martinique and Guadeloupe are now driving a transformed, solution-oriented response across Organization of Eastern Caribbean States member states. Supported by the European Union's 11th EDF Right Program and the SARSI project, a delegation of technical experts and policymakers representing 9 OECS member states undertook a strategic mission recently to examine advanced management and valorization models. By observing operations in the French Caribbean outermost regions, the initiative aimed to bridge technical innovation with regional policy, turning a shared ecological threat into a vital pillar for the Caribbean blue economy. A primary focus for the OECS is valorization, or converting raw sargassum into commercially viable resources. That's a look at news for today, Wednesday, July 15th. Here's a recap of the top stories. Medium-term action plan placed under microscope at government's validation retreat, and a new Windward jetty promises enhanced connectivity between Carriacou and Petite Martinique. On behalf of the news and production team, I am Rikisha St. Louis, thanking you for joining us.